Alright, hello again, Spike subreddit. I'm back again with a different type of Esper brew. My post the other day about Esper control seemed to go pretty well. A lot of good discussion down there. People seem interested in this color combination for the upcoming standard season. So I thought that I would share something else that I'd worked on. This started off as kind of just a for fun build to do on the side. My main focus was going to be Esper control, but I've found through some testing the past couple of days that this deck is actually pretty powerful, I think, and I potentially like it more than Esper control as far as the matchups I've tested it against. So I'm going to run through it. Obviously, as you can tell, the sideboard is pretty basic, bare bones at this point. I've got a lot of stuff in the maybe board here that I'm going to go over. A lot of this, I feel like Esper Control kind of, in a lot of ways, sort of built itself a little bit. There wasn't, there was some stuff to think about, but a lot of it seemed pretty self-explanatory. I think with this deck, there's a lot more at play. There's a lot more, nuance to the deck building. So that's why there's so much more stuff down here. So I'm just going to run through it real quick. A lot of it's going to be the same as the Esper Control, so I'm not going to go too in-depth. Like the land base, it's the exact same. 4 Drowned Catacomb, 4 Glacial Fortress, 4 Irrigated Farmland, 4 Island, 4 Isolated Chapel, 4 Plains, 2 Swamp. I've taken the advice of some of the people in the comments on the last video, the last Reddit post, and I have eliminated double black from the deck. I decided, as of right now, the deck is a blue-white deck that is splashing black. So we don't have any double black in the main deck. We do have one double black over here, but I'll talk about that. So that's where I'm at right now. I think there's an argument to be made for blue, black, splash, white, which I'll get to down here, but we'll get to that. Sorceries, 2 Fumigate, pretty simple. Enchantments, still got the 2 Seal Away. No cast outs. I think in this deck, cast out's not nearly as good. I think Seal Away is the way to go. Planeswalker, still doing 2 Teferi. I think Teferi is more potent in the control shell than he is in the mid-range shell, but I still think that he's just so good that I still think he's worth running in the main deck for mid-range. The card advantage is still great. The untapped lands is still great. The spinning third from the top is still great. So he's still just a great planeswalker. I honestly think if you're running anything blue-white, he's worth sticking in. I think he's just a great walker all around. So we're gonna get to the big difference here, which is the creature lineup. Obviously, a lot of this is kind of copy-pasted from blue-black mid-range, and then we've got some white stuff in there from Dominaria, whatever. We got Glint Sleeve, Champion of Wits, Raf Capuchan, Ship's Mage. This guy is a 3/3 for 4 flash flying, and you can cast historic spells as though they had flash. This is pretty good. I like this card a lot, especially because you can curve it into a flash Scarab God, which is pretty sweet. But even if you don't have a Scarab God to flash into, a 3/3 with flying, like, it is still good. Like, that's still, especially with flash, you can get it in as a surprise blocker. You can flash it in, if you have mana sitting up, get it in there so it's ready to attack next turn. All around, I think it's a pretty good card. I think it's a little bit undervalued right now. I think it's solid. And then I'm doing Shalai, Voice of Plenty, which is the angel that gives everything but itself, pretty much, hexproof. Obviously, we're not going to be using the 6 mana, the 2 green ability. I think that's more for the green-white tokens Shalai, not so much the Esper Shalai. but I think her first ability is plenty. She's a 3/4, so she's got good toughness. She's outside of lightning strike, abrade, that kind of stuff. And if you manage to get both out there, you can create I think you can create like a lock, as far as I understand the rules on that. I think it makes this a soft lock, right? Correct me on that if I'm wrong. Next up is the Scarab God, obviously. I think 3 Scarab God might be correct. Right now I'm only doing 2 just for testing, but I think that might go up to 3. And then rounding it off, we got 2 Gear Hulk. Gear Hulk, I'm admittedly a pretty big fan of the value Gear Hulk, where you flash it in and then like flashback Glimmer of Genius or something, more so than I am a fan of the Gear Hulk into Fatal Push or Essence Scatter or what have you, or Settle the Wreckage, whatever you want to do. I know that it's still good for that type of thing. I'm a little down on it in the mid-range build just because I can't draw cards off of it, and I like drawing cards. But I think it's still worth running 2 of, and it curves out nicely too. Like, I think this deck has a pretty nice curve. We've got 4 2-drops, 4 3-drops, 4 4-drops, 2 5s, and then 2 6. So I think that's nice as far as a creature lineup goes. Instance is kind of just a toned down version of the control build. We've got 4 Fatal Push, 2 Essence Scatter, 1 Supreme Will, 2 Commit to Memory. I like this card a lot with Teferi. The second half Memory is just like a 6 or 7 card exile, so if you get the emblem off, so that's pretty sweet. Plus refilling your hand, is nice. Settle the Wreckage, we're doing 3 of those in the main. I bounced around between 3 Settle, 2 Fumigate. I think 3 Settle is better. It's still double white, but it's only 4 mana. I think the extra mana makes a big difference, so I'm doing 3/2 for right now. So that's the main board. Sideboard I'm just going to go over quickly because I think it's going to change so much once Dominaria hits. I don't know if I'm just going to give some brief thoughts on what I think is going to be carried over and what's going to be good. Got Double Dispel for the control matchup. I think that's still going to be good. Countering their cheap stuff, to try and stop you from getting your board established is going to be important. Duress, same type of deal. I like Duress a lot. Duress actually has a lot of application right now. It's a pretty versatile card because it hits the gifts deck pretty hard. It hits control. It hits a lot of top tier stuff. It doesn't hit mono red so good, obviously, red green monsters, that type of stuff. But still think it's worth having. Fragmentize is something I've been experimenting with for the gifts decks. There's been a lot of gifts, the blue red and then the blue, blue white, I think is the other gifts one. I don't like that deck. I don't like losing to that deck. So I'm this sideboard is pretty heavy on gifts hate. But it is what it is. It's one of the top decks right now, so I think it's worth doing. 2 Negate, again, control matchup. Also could be good against the gifts. I think maybe I think that's overboarding if you put in the negates, but do what you want to do. Dispossess, choose an artifact. Obviously, gifts again. Doomfall I really like because it's so versatile. This can get rid of, if you're playing a mid-range mirror and they drop a Scarab God on an open board, you can have it exiled. If they draw a bunch of cards, they've got something you don't want to deal with, you can use it as an expensive duress or whatever. But it's good. I like that it's so versatile. Forsake the Worldly, more artifact and enchantment hate. I think enchantment hate is going to be kind of important. There's gonna be a good Saga deck, right? That's gonna happen. There might even be multiple good Saga decks, and I think it's gonna be important to be able to counteract them. So Forsake the Worldly, Fragmentize, same type of deal. Forsake the Worldly is a little bit wider than Fragmentize. It hits stuff that's more than 4. As far as I can tell, though, most of the good sagas seem to be 4 or less mana, like Benalia, stuff like that. But we'll see. I have it in there just in case. Golden Demise is the double black card I was talking about. And I know what you're thinking. You've got, why not just run a Fumigate or a Settle in there? My thinking is, against a tokens matchup, Golden Demise is it's a whole 2 mana cheaper than Fumigate, and it's 1 mana cheaper than Settle, and it's a -2/-2, so it's, 9 times out of 10 it's gonna kill all the tokens. So I've been testing it out. I'm not sure exactly if it's gonna work out or not yet, but I've been enjoying it when I've had it, which has been nice. Solemnity also. Players can't get counters. Counters can put on artifact features, enchantments, or lands. Yada yada yada. Tokens matchup. Green-white tokens is going to be really good, I think, in the new standard. So Solemnity is going to be a good out for that type of stuff. Might be a little bit less good since it's an enchantment, and I feel like green-white is going to be running, fragmentized, stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said, sideboard it's kind of just there because I wanted to test siding with the deck and see like what I'm comfortable taking out against certain matchups and things like that. And to kind of help me gauge to which cards in the main deck may not be so good. The cards that I'm constantly like, okay, I can pull this out, no sweat, not going to miss it, and put in something else. Maybe that's something I think about not main. And that's mostly why the sideboard is there. It's not super tuned or refined at this point, but that's what I got. So I want to talk about my maybe board a little bit because I've been tooling around with a few different ideas. I've thought about maybe doing Esper mid-range, but it's white, black, splash, blue to maybe take out the Gear Hulks, and then you can kind of skew your mana more towards double black. You could put things like Vraska's Contempt back in, Liliana's Death Majesty. Josu Vess is a little spicy. I'm not totally sure if that's a worthwhile thing to be doing, but I like it anyway. Obviously, Gonti could go back in, and Gonti is, he's got a great ETB ability, so he plays well with Scarab God. Things to like settle the score. You drop a Teferi, play settle the score. It's already at 6 loyalty, 2 turns till the emblem. That one I'm not too sure about, but I think it's worth testing out. Exiling target creature is good too. It costs the same as a Vraska's Contempt, but obviously it's a sorcery speed. But it'll get rid of a Scarab God, just as well. And if they drop a Scarab God on turn 5, they're tapped out. It's the same situation as Vraska's, right? Like, they don't get to use the ability. That's the important thing. So, I don't know. I think it might be worth testing out. But at the same time, I'm not sure if 2 Teferi is enough to warrant settle the score, which is why I've been looking at Liliana's Death Majesty a little bit. At first, I was really low on Liliana. Like, I was kind of down on her because her +1 isn't great, right? Like, creating a 2/2 zombie and milling some cards isn't where we want to be with a 5-mana Planeswalker. But her -3 is, pretty strong, right? Like, like I said, bringing back a Gonti, or in the case of this deck, bringing back a Shalai would be pretty powerful. Bringing back Wrath Capuchin to give your stuff flash again, like, I think there might be something there. I'm not sure. That's still something I'm working on. Syncopate, I like the card a lot. I think it's a strong counterspell. I don't like how it plays with Gear Hulk, but it might have a place in the deck. I'm not sure yet. Blink of an Eye, same deal. I like the tempo, the tempo disruption you can give with Blink of an Eye. I also like how if you pay an extra 2 mana, it replaces itself, cantrips as well as the tempo disruption, which is cool. But 4 mana is a lot. If I were playing Esper Control, I'd be way more comfortable running this card, and in fact, I might put this in an Esper Control deck anyway. But in Esper mid-range, it's something I wasn't too sure about. Let's see, is that everything? Oh, in Bolus's Clutches. This one I like because Confiscation Coup was really good in Standard for a while, and this is essentially Confiscation Coup. So that's kind of why I'm into it. It's not that expensive, 6 mana, to just take something, like literally anything, is pretty powerful. Again, the issue with it, though, is it's an aura, legendary enchantment. So again, you know, if the gift deck sticks around and you see a lot of enchantment hate in sideboards, or, you know, I mean, artifact hate, but by extension, fragmentize and stuff hits enchantments as well, is what I mean by that. But if that sticks around, Impulse's Clutches might not be as good. But I thought it was interesting. I thought it was worth mentioning. So that's kind of where I'm at with the deck right now. I will say this deck performs better, in my experience, against mono red. I think it performs better. I should clarify, better than Esper control, or blue-white control for that matter. I think this deck has strong tempo. I think it just kind of flows. It reminds me in a lot of ways that flow that Teamer Energy had. I played Teamer Energy for a while back in its like heyday, and the deck just kind of is smooth, you know. I think the curve for it is, for the creatures, is pretty solid. I think it's got good disruption for the early game, so that you can get into your 4 and 5 drops safely. I think it's a pretty strong deck. Like, I don't know if it's, I can't say for sure if it's going to be tier 1 or whatever, but like the mono red matchup seems good. The gifts matchup seems good. The Sultai Constrictor matchup is, it feels like a joke to me. This deck just, it does more things than Sultai Control can or not Sultai Control, sorry, Sultai Constrictor can keep up with. But then again, Esper Control felt very good against that deck too, so take that for what you will. So that's pretty much what I've tested it against. I tested it, a friend of mine has a blue-black mid-range-ish deck that I tested it against as well. And it feels good against that deck as well. Like, I think this 3-color deck feels distinctly better than the blue-black 2-color stuff that we've been doing thus far. So I if like the Scarab God mid-range has a place in the next format, which I think it does, I think Esper is the color combination that you want to be in, personally. I don't think Grixis is the way to go. I don't think red has got as many good tools as white-black has gotten. So I think that's the way to go with it. If you like the deck, let me know. Obviously, I'm looking for feedback, criticism. The stuff that I got on my other post made this deck and the control deck, I think, 10 times better. So, you know, lay into me, and I'll take it all. I'll take it all to mind. So, thanks for made it through this whole thing. Thanks. And I'll see you in the comments.